firstly, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land we share and pay respect to the elders past and present, and also the leaders of the many cultures that we have present amongst our community, and welcome to any of those that may be present in the room today. So thank you for Noosa Council for this amazing event that you've put on, and for asking Volunteering Queensland to be part of it. We're more than happy to be part of it. Volunteering Queensland is the peak body for volunteering in Queensland, and we try and support as much as we can the volunteering involving organisations across the state, and of course our volunteer reference centres, which is of course Sunshine Coast, who do an amazing job up here. So thank you for that as well. I'm the Sector Development Manager for that, so I look after all the RTO that runs our certificate courses in coordination of volunteer management and active volunteering, and also the professional development workshops and so forth, and get to do these fun gigs, especially on National Volunteer Week. Everyone else is down there going crazy, getting awards ready, and I get to enjoy the company of yourselves. So just want to remind you that volunteering is time willingly given for the common good and not for financial gain. So remembering this definition changed when they took out of it with a not-for-profit organisation. So we have to acknowledge the informal volunteering that is going on in our community now, which is a big change in the trend. We can't capture it, of course, because it's informal, but there certainly proves that there is a very, very enormous culture of helping others for the common good and without financial gain within our communities. So some of the different trends and changes that we're seeing, I'm just going to run through a little section of how we can compare it. So of course one of it is the changing trend of informal volunteering, and one thing I want to point out here as well is with our new populations that are coming in, helping others out or helping out your tribe is just part of their culture. So they have volunteering in their hearts and in their minds, they just don't call it that. So we can capture a whole community in that is doing it already. Then we have the episodic volunteer that was just alluded to there. So episodic volunteering is really becoming, it's a reality. It's not a trend that is up and coming, it's the reality now, where people want to volunteer, but they want a beginning, they want to know what they're going to be doing, and they want to know when that's going to finish. And they may be a serial episodic volunteer, hence Com Games, Goodwill Games, G20, how many polo shirts can you collect, but they're an episodic volunteer. Another one on the rise is the corporate volunteering. So a lot of corporate organisations now are asking for their corporate social responsibility as something that they are measured against, not just their bottom line financially. So we are actually doing campaigns and working with corporates as well, formally, but we know it's happening on its own breath as well, where organisations are either going out as whole groups, or they're telling their employees that they can go and volunteer so many days a year and have that time off work and work claims that against their corporate social responsibility. How many people here have captured that market or would be able to, do you think? Anyone already using them? So anyone who isn't and is interested, speak to those people in the room and find out a bit more about what's working or not working to consider. Virtual volunteering. Our new generation are connected not by paper and pen and face-to-face meetings, they're connected over the World Wide Web. So start to consider, and things that are a little bit out of the box that will become a reality is board meetings that aren't held face-to-face in a boardroom. They can be held virtually as well. So don't lose the strength of a potentially really good board member just because they can't get to the meetings. And of course you've got that intake of people who have the computer skills that can do stuff remotely. They can do your newsletters, or they can do some web paging stuff, the traditional stuff you think of with virtual volunteering. I have a virtual volunteer that helps me with my educational stuff, and her job for me is just to go through the internet, scouring it for activities and YouTube clips and interesting things to add in as resources for our educational programs. And I say, here's the topics, and she just sends them all back and goes, this one's good, this one's great, this one's got nothing to do with it, but it's got a really cute cat in it. So, to tell a millennium that she has to scour YouTube for 3 hours for me, it's not a bad gig. Of course, spontaneous volunteers. I probably only have to say Mud Army, and you get this. It's a reactionary volunteering scenario, and it's really usually around an emergency or a call to arms for a particular event. Family volunteering. At one end of the scale here, we have volunteer tourism, which is families going on holidays and volunteering to assist in an orphanage or to build a bridge or things like that in other countries. But then we also take it down to our level, and the reality is that we can actually access a much broader range of volunteers and a higher commitment level by looking at the different generations and saying, well, where can the others help out? So sporting clubs are usually good at this. The parent automatically becomes a volunteer when their child signs up, or if they don't turn up to a meeting, they end up the team captain. So looking at, well, what are the other emotionally involved volunteers that could come with this one volunteer that we get? And lastly is just the pathways. So pathway volunteers, these are the volunteers that are doing it because they need to get back into the workforce and they need to get experience of what the workforce is like now. Or the classic one that we see is the student volunteers. So Student Volunteer Week, which is in August every year, I have been to those and I've done presentations at the universities. How many universities or TAFE representatives have we got here? We got any? So a very big part of the student experience at universities and colleges now is around getting out there and getting experience in the field that you're studying. So when I went to uni, it was about getting the best marks I could on that piece of paper, and I walked out with a little thin folder with a really good marks. Well, okay, average marks, but I got out of there with a good piece of paper. Now they've got to walk out with a portfolio of experience that some of them it has to be that you can do the job before you're qualified to do it. So they're looking for work experience that's relevant to what they're studying, but also work experience in what does work feel like and how do I function in a work scenario. So student volunteers, the universities and colleges have people in there that can help you see if you have a good match for that experience for them, and what you may have to change and decide whether it's worth it, whether you have the capacity to do that. And again, another big one of this that I've had to do a fair bit of work with is around the new migrant populations of coming in and getting used to our work culture while they're studying or as part of their migrant learning. I'm not sure what term to use of that, but yeah, there is a population there, highly skilled, intelligent, lovely people that just want to get out and see what Australian work life is like, and we can benefit from that. So the other last thing I'll talk about is just the trend around trying to get what I call is behind your door. So with volunteer programs, start to look at what is our organisational structure like and how are we running our volunteer program. And one of the things that you could use to help you guide that, if you haven't seen it, is the National Standards for Volunteer Involvement. So this was put out by Volunteering Australia. It was done in 2015. It was developed after a nationwide consultation. It is a really good guide. These are the different areas you look at and say, have we actually got a good program, and are we covering off all the areas to make it a place where volunteers want to be? So one of the trends is about saying, let's get our program up to a standard, because then we become a much higher standard of volunteer involving organisation. And we have some information about that if you need. That's it. Any others? Any others that I didn't mention that people are thinking of? Cool. All right, I'm handing it over.